Hello everyone, my name is Griffin, and today we are going to cover, Guys of Reddit, what did your girlfriend's dad do to establish dominance? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Found out he was a high-ranking official for the Secret Service in Poland during the Soviet era. He doesn't have to do anything more to terrify me. My ex-wife's father, actually a pretty cool guy. One year at Christmas, I was trying to open a package that my nephew had gotten, and my father-in-law said just use your pocket knife. I said sorry, I don't carry a pocket knife, I'll go get one from the kitchen. He said what kind of a man doesn't carry a pocket knife? I sat there for a minute, trying to think of a response. Feeling pretty low, he started laughing and said sorry. Shirley's mother-in-law's dad asked me that one time and I've been waiting to use it on you. My ex-wife and I are still on pretty decent terms. He passed away recently. It was a really sad thing, knowing that he was gone. There were 3 urinals. He pissed in the one next to me. My piss froze in the middle of my urethra, and I stood there looking like a dumbass. He stood up. I'm 5 feet 6 inches. He's 6 feet 1 inches. He sat down on the couch next to me shirtless and just wearing long underwear and said, "Let's play a game called Let's See How Uncomfortable We Can Make Trevor." My name isn't even Trevor. Then he proceeded to take me up to his bedroom and tried to coerce me into smoking pot and doing mushrooms, even though I told him I had never done drugs, never wanted to do drugs, and was expecting to be drug tested as I was trying to get into the military. Eventually he backed off, but he was always pretty weird. We got quite drunk the first night we met. I took his side over hers in a debate they were having. He grabbed my face and kissed me on the lips. Years later, walking her down the aisle, he said to me, "She's your problem now." He actually didn't do anything himself to terrify me, but my girlfriend did it for him. She told me all about how her grandfather, his dad, was a legitimate lumberjack and how her dad, was pretty much one too. He chopped wood for fun and at one point his arms were so big that he had to cut the sleeves off his flannel shirts. He also used to bow hunt, camp for days, and works out a lot. He's the manliest man I personally know, which is a stark contrast to me. He is a really nice guy and has only made me feel slightly uncomfortable with his sarcasm. Shot me, point blank, with a Nerf gun. No warning, just a dinner I was having with their family. All he said was, "You try any funny business, you'll get the or nothing." Background: I had recently started dating my girlfriend and had met her dad one time. I had left a bottle of whiskey at my girlfriend's house. She was out of town for the weekend, so I asked if I could sneak in and grab it. I came in and yelled to see if anyone was home, and no one replied. I went upstairs to grab my bottle, and in bursts her dad with his hands raised asking who I was and saying he was a judo champion. He then realized who I was and we said an awkward goodbye. Haha. Clammed up. Basically acted as if I wasn't there, and if I did talk to him, I got single-word answers. This is an actual conversation when I was stuck in a car with him. "What do you do?" "Sales. Been doing that a long time." "Yes. How many years?" 30. "Retiring soon?" "Yeah. What are you planning to do when you retire?" "Florida." "Where in Florida?" "West." "So, like, Tampa." "Yeah." My girlfriend gets a text the next day from him saying I'm a great guy and he's happy she's dating me. I was 17 at the time and was really into his 16Y/0 daughter. He sat me down at his kitchen table for what I thought would be a talk. Instead, he pulls out a length of rope and demonstrates step by step how to tie a prop and noose for hanging someone. Dated a girl back in high school who took me to her grandparents for a family reunion type meal. Sometime after the dinner, her grandfather took me outside to talk and we started walking towards his workshop. So he opens the door and suddenly I am staring down the barrel of a cannon. Not a model, not a toy, a fully functioning Civil War cannon surrounded by all manner of historical weaponry, muskets, rifles, swords, bayonets, battle axes, even a freaking suit of armor. You name it, old boy collected it. Needless to say, I knew right then and there that Gramps didn't frick around and I probably shouldn't do anything to really piss off his granddaughter. Shook my hand real firm and asked, "Hello, are you fricking my daughter in your apartment?" No introduction, wouldn't let go without an answer. I'm really tall and he is a short stocky wrestler. 14 years later, still together. I once came to a girl's house to pick her up for a date in high school, and her father answered the door and said, "Come on in." So I followed him inside. to discover the dining room table covered in disassembled firearms, and he casually sat back down, resuming oiling and assembling everything, looked up and asked, "So what are you kids up to tonight?" "Watching a movie with my girlfriend. I'm wearing my Alabama hoodie and he saw it. We were in the basement and she got a text from him which was a picture of a bed with all Alabama covers, pillows, etc. with the caption, 'When you're ready for a sexy night with your cousin.' I took the hoodie off and left in shame afterwards. He made me a bet. If I could catch 3 footballs while his daughter is covering me, I would have his respect. Not the strangest bet I've made, but whatever. I ran 3 different routes for each one, caught the first 2. Last one, I didn't know this about my girlfriend, but she is a huge Deion Sanders fan. Ball goes up, she caught it and in the process elbowing me in the eye and giving me a black eye. Told me he worked for the Ministry of Defense, that his job was very high security clearance and potentially dangerous. Basically portrayed himself as a kind of badass spy, and he'd published some papers on counter-terrorism methods, so it at least kind of tied together with his academic interests. I never really found out what his actual job was, or if he was bullshitting me, but I do know that his daughter didn't know much more than I did, and that she was unable to legally declare his income for the purposes of student finance assessments. Which does kind of support the idea that his salary isn't supposed to be a matter of public record. Leave her when she was a child. It was a real power play on his part in my opinion. Haven't even exchanged names yet. The guy puts his finger on my chest. I look down and of course flips it up into my face. Laughs so hard. I was not expecting that, but it's just who this guy is. A dad cleaned a pistol in front of me. That said, I thought that he already knew that my dad was a cop, and that he figured I thought guns were cool, which was true. I truly thought he was trying to relate to me. In hindsight, I guess not. This is what my dad did when my sister's boyfriend came home the first time. Just sitting at the table, sharpening the kitchen's knives. I still don't know if it was a coincidence. My dad says it is, but my mom and sister make a really good point. He had never sharpened knives for the kitchen before. The story of my dad waiting for him sharpening knives has been told in the whole school for a couple of years. My father-in-law held some title for state boxing champ in his home state back in the day. The first time we drove over to see him, he was drunk and had a huge cut across the bridge of his nose. Apparently, he had beat the shit out of 3 20-something-year-old bullies the night before when they decided to jump him at the bar. His 70-something-year-old dad was mugged in his own home one time. My father-in-law found the guy who did it, followed him inside his house and broke his knees and elbows. He then proceeded to beat the shit out of the guy to the point of brain damage. In his words, "If they can't talk, they can't identify you. Dude is chill as frick every time I'm around, and thanks me every time I see him for getting his daughter out of the hellhole they lived in. But I know for a fact if I ever break her heart, he'd freaking bury me. If I ever leave, it'll have to be the country." My ex-father-in-law never did anything to really establish dominance. He shook my hand and looked into me and asked how I was doing. About 7 months later, when she was my girlfriend, we went and told him and her mother that she was pregnant, but we had already started saving extra money and had a plan for when the baby was born. This was in 2002. He once again shook my hand and thanked me for actually being a real man. Eventually he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and we moved in with him so we could keep a better eye on him. I ended up with not only another father figure like my grandfather, but a best friend. We did everything together and had a lot of fun. We'd pick on each other so much it would easily get out of hand, much to the rolling of eyes of our respective wives. He went missing a couple of times, went for a walk and got turned around, and then went for a drive and got lost. I was terrified but kept my composite and didn't stop looking until we found him. Hours later, he was a stereotypical Texan with a lot of guns, cowboy boots and hats, but with a heart the size of Texas itself to match. Fun fact, when his daughter, my wife, ended up cheating on me, which led to separation and divorce, she thought it was okay to bring the new guy around a couple of months after our daughter and I moved back near my family. He excused himself and come back with one of his shotguns and simply proclaimed, "You're not Nemesis," and the guy actually pissed himself. He told me about it later on the phone, cracking up, and he said, "I'm not as far gone as they think sometimes," and he told me that I will forever be his son. I miss that Texan bastard. He sat on the couch and watched house remodeling shows on HGTV while eating bags of candy. My father just happened to be cleaning his guns and trying out his bore sight when I brought my boyfriend home the first time. A table full of rifles and shotguns. My boyfriend's reaction was oh neat, and they talked about the guns for an hour. They went without me to a blacksmithing festival recently. I think all I did was bring home a friend for my dad. I flew overseas to meet my wife's family and ask for her hand in marriage. Made reservations at one of the fancier restaurants in town, and asked him to meet me there for a talk. Should add that I was unemployed and completely broke. He pulls up in a BMW, tires screeching, and tells me to get in. I protest that we have reservations, and he says to forget about them. He takes me to a really simple coffee shop, says that I don't need to impress him with fancy shit. I tell him that I love his daughter, and will always make sure that she is happy. He just looks at me for a long time, not saying anything. Finally, he says, I don't know you, but I know my daughter, and she's really smart. So many guys wanted to marry her, and she turned them down. If she sees something in you, then I'm all for it. We shook hands, and then we drove to the supermarket so I could help him haul a shit ton of groceries. My wife and I have been married for 15 years, and he's always been a complete gentleman to me. Even though I showed up in his city completely broke and jobless, lived under his roof and ate his food, he never once made me feel that he was doing me some kind of favor, or that I was anyone but a valued member of the family. And this despite the fact that he has a nasty temper and never holds his tongue with anyone else. I worked my ass off and get back on my feet. And my wife made big leaps in her career as well. And eventually we moved back to the States. He continues to be my ideal of what a real man should be. I hope to treat my own daughter's husband as well as he treated me. She had 2 moms. It was quite awkward when they both tried establishing dominance. My wife, girlfriend at the time, is Japanese, so we flew to Japan so that I could meet her dad and ask for her hand in marriage. At dinner he pulled out the whiskey and beer. Turned out to be a drinking contest where I had to match him drink for drink. Problem is that I'm 6 feet tall, got 25 pounds on his ass, and I'm Mexican American. Insert stereotypes here. 3 hours later he was shit-faced passed out while I was at the mini-mart buying a 6-pack to drink on my walk back to the hotel. That night I became a family legend. Please subscribe if you like the video. It really helps the channel to grow. Adios.